Started the new month in COVID alert level 1. This after President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the nation on the vaccination rollout as well as the progress in regards to containing the pandemic. Very good morning to you. Welcome to Pan-African Morning. Thank you for joining us. We certainly appreciate you. It is a Tuesday. It is the 2nd of March 2021. Thank you for waking up with us. We certainly appreciate it. I am AUDREY CHIMWANDA-THWALA. I'll be with you for the next couple of hours as we serve you your favorite breakfast show here, coming to you live from our Midrand studios in Johannesburg. Of course, if you're watching us on our decoder on Starsat, we're in channel 500. Now, Ramaphosa further stated that phase 2 of the vaccine rollout will be implemented towards the end of April and the beginning of May, and those who will be vaccinated in round 2 include the elderly, essential workers and those with comorbidities.
The new alert level will come into effect later this evening once the regulations have been gazetted. This will mean that the hours of curfew will now move from 12 midnight to 4 a.m. Second part is that gatherings will be permitted, subject to limitations on size, adherence to social distancing and other health protocols. And these gatherings will include these following types of gatherings: religious, social, political, and cultural gatherings. The other part is that the maximum number of people allowed at any gathering is 100 people for indoor gatherings and 250 people for outdoor gatherings. Where the venue is too small to accommodate these numbers with appropriate social distancing, then no more than 50% of the capacity of the venue may be used. Night vigils or other gatherings before or after funerals are still not permitted. Nightclubs will remain closed. The sale of alcohol will be permitted according to normal license provisions. However, no alcohol may be sold during the hours of curfew. The wearing of masks in public places is still mandatory, in other words, compulsory. And failure to wear a mask when required to do so remains.
Well, the move comes as new daily infections have dropped to around 1,000 mark. This has been happening in recent days as South Africa is coming out of a devastating second wave of infections.
Based on an assessment of the current state of the pandemic in the country, Cabinet, after various levels of consultation with our provinces and our metro mayors, Cabinet has decided earlier today to move the country from coronavirus alert level 3 to alert level 1. The new alert level will come into effect later this evening once the regulations have been gazetted. This will mean that the hours of curfew will now move from 12 midnight to 4 a.m. Second part is that gatherings will be permitted, subject to limitations on size, adherence to social distancing and other health protocols. And these gatherings will include these following types of gatherings: religious, social, political.
Meanwhile, the Democratic Alliance says that they have welcomed the announcement that the country will move to lockdown alert level 1, along with the easing of restrictions on alcohol sales and gatherings and the shortening of the curfew. Steenhuisen, the DA leader, emphasized that the sole focus of the government and the country should be on the rolling out of a comprehensive vaccination program and rebuilding the economy, saying that these cannot be substituted with a destructive lockdown. The DA head also went on to say that it is also remaining critical that the country greatly accelerates its vaccination program and that the government provides clarity on where these vaccines will be coming from and in what quantities and by when.
Lights are off in South Africa. The people's representatives in Parliament are not there lighting the way forward out of this crisis. Now, yesterday the President said, and I quote, "The energy challenges in this country will not be resolved overnight," unquote. But the real tragedy is there is so much we could be doing as a country immediately to resolve this crisis. The most efficient and immediate step is using Section 34 of the Electricity Regulation.
Well, we'll take you to the courts now. The man accused of masterminding CHIMWANDA-THWALA's murder was back in court. Dutugo Shoba appeared at the Roodepoort Magistrates Court to hear charges relating to his alleged role in the murder of his girlfriend. During the proceedings, the defense said that Shoba is more at risk in prison than he is outside, and that the defense was referring to the voice notes where threats are apparently being made against Shoba. The state responded by saying that the onus is on Shoba to prove exceptional circumstances that is in the interest of justice to grant him bail. Unfortunately, Shona, the state found that he has failed dismally to prove exceptional circumstances. Shona has been charged with murder, conspiracy to commit murder, as well as defeating the ends of justice. The case has been postponed to this coming Friday for judgment, and Galaxy Universal Network will bring you live coverage of the proceedings. In other news now, Minister Ronald Lamola and Thoko Didiza briefed the media on the Cabinet-approved Land Court Bill. Now, this bill, approved by the Cabinet, will soon be introduced to Parliament. The legislation is set to contribute and to amend the country's land reform policy framework. Justice and Correctional Services Minister Ronald Lamola said the Land Court Bill will ensure a stronger judicial oversight over claims to reduce the scope of corruption and to lead to better settlements. While the police are ill-equipped, untrained and under-resourced to adequately ensure that law and order is maintained in Gauteng. This is what Premier David Makhura said at the hashtag Not Fit to Govern and Must Be Voted Out when the Gauteng legislature debated the DA's motion of no confidence in him. Well, those were the statements shared, I beg your pardon, by the member, rather, of the Democratic Alliance. Well, we'll take a very short break for now. When we come back, we'll give you a bit more of that story in detail. Just stay with us. We'll be back on the other side.
Make massive moves.
Bible is human and divine.
It's important for us to remember.
And I'm part of God's story.
Yeah, mama, mama, hey.
God is healing you.
God says what he means, and he means what he says.
God is good.
I am very grateful to God. I am healed. Amen.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
This is just the beginning.
Make massive moves.
Get out! Get out of this place!
I love you. Do you love me?
Yes.
I like this. Someone stole from me yesterday.
It was not my fault now.
Eh? Leave me or I blast your head.
No, don't shoot, sir, please. Please don't kill us. I'll give you anything you want.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
Anger boils over in El Dorado Park.
Make massive moves.
Corruption allegations have hit too close to the office of the president.
America is crying out for leadership.
I'm the president and you're fake news.
Donald Trump has already started his attacks.
It is clear from the development of the disease.
But it's still the biggest annual decline in 100 years.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
Allen has to change.
Make massive moves.
Oh my God! Oh! Knocked out!
And WBC Continental America's champion.
That was delightful.
Make massive moves with Starsat. Make massive moves.
Isn't that your daughter's bib? But the truth is, I feel like Arabella's always with me.
Don't you ever forget this man's face. He killed your brother.
Don't shoot! Please don't shoot! Don't shoot!
Make massive moves with Starsat. Make massive moves.
Wow! Let's go. Come on, we can be back by morning.
Who are you?
I'm the boss.
Really?
Really?
Yeah! Awesome! Totally! Yeehaw!
Very funny.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
Welcome back to Pan-African Morning. Thank you for joining us. We're still with you. It's a quarter past 7 o'clock, and we continue with our news and updates here. Pastor Mukuba of the Unity Fellowship Church was arrested after her church was failed beyond COVID regulation numbers. Meanwhile, the police say that they will be letting the law take its course when people continue to break lockdown regulations. Well, currently some charges have been pressed against the church leader, and they will be appearing in court anytime soon. Meanwhile, the churchgoers allegedly damaged Metro Police patrol vehicles, and they injured 2 officers defending their pastor from being arrested. Well, church members are accusing the Johannesburg Metro Police Department of failing to arrest drug dealers who are breaking the COVID-19 restrictions in the corners, but they are targeting their pastor. This is the defense that is coming from the congregation.
How loud we are. We are going to continue to pray. Pray. Just pray. Just pray. The Lord hears the prayers.
Well, now let's take a look at what's been happening at the markets. A bit of business news for you. European shares jumped and the bond market claimed, with yields dropping from the recent spikes, while optimism about the United States fiscal stimulus sent oil prices higher. The rand was trading at 15 rand 6 cents against the dollar, 18 rand 15 cents against the euro, 20 rand 93 cents against the British pound. Now, a bit of African news. Nigeria is about to receive its very first tranche of COVID-19 vaccines from COVAX, a global scheme set up to procure and to distribute vaccines as the country works to contain the pandemic. The first shipment of 4 million vaccines is expected to arrive in the country about a year after the most populous African nation recorded its very first index case. That's on the 27th of February 2020. This has been confirmed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation of Nigeria and the Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on the COVID-19. Nigeria has recorded a total of 155,417 COVID-19 confirmed cases. This since the index case, an imported one, which was recorded in Lagos, the epicenter of the virus, according to data from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control.
Well, I can assure you that our vaccines are, the vaccines are coming, and they are coming very quickly, bearing any change in the delivery plan that has been released to us by UNICEF. Our vaccines are supposed to, like I said, bearing any change, because the logistical arrangements and other things are in the hands of the UNICEF. We believe that our vaccines should depart India on the 1st of March 2021 at 10:30 p.m. in the night and arrive Abuja on the 2nd of March 2021 at about 11:10 a.m. in the morning. So we are making preparations for that. But the truth about it is that as we receive the vaccines, this one is coming from the covered facility. About 4 million doses of vaccines are coming from the covered facility on this one trip. We're supposed to have about 16 million in the first quarter from the covered facility. And expecting by the time they supply all the range.
Well, the Nigerian government official further said the country expects to receive about 16 million in the first quarter from the COVAX facility, while by the time they supply all the range, they are expecting that they will supply 84 million doses from the COVAX facility, which is free of charge and will cover about 20% of the Nigerian population. According to Mustafa, Nigeria has also another source of more than 40 million doses of vaccines that is coming in from the African Union's African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team.
We are expecting that they will supply about 84 million doses from the COVAX facility, which is free of charge and is supposed to cover about 20% of the Nigerian population. We also have another source of vaccines coming in from the AVAT facility, which is the African Vaccine Action Team. We are expecting about 41 million of that, a combination of AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. Everything we are expecting from the COVAX facility, I believe, is going to be the AstraZeneca, which has a good range in terms of storage for us, because it uses just +2 to +8% of refrigeration. It doesn't come with any complication. We already have that cold chain available in virtually all the local governments and constituencies and wards in this country. I believe we are well prepared to receive our vaccines, and I hope that they keep to this time frame that they have given us, and we are eagerly expecting vaccines. But I must caution Nigerians that it is going to be a combination of vaccines with the non-pharmaceutical measures. And the non-pharmaceutical measures will remain in place, the wearing of masks.
And still with the African stories, we bring you a report that we like to call Africa Weekly, in case you missed out on some of the important stories that have been happening across the continent. Ghana becoming the very first country to receive the coronavirus vaccine from the global COVAX scheme, and they were tasked with ensuring that the vaccines are evenly distributed across the world. This, of course, is a facility that has been made available by the World Health Organization. Guinea has also announced, unfortunately, another Ebola epidemic following the first outbreak in as much as 4 years, and Mohamed Bazoum has claimed victory in Niger's presidential race. Here's a report.
Ghana has become the first country to receive COVID-19 vaccines from the global COVAX scheme. The scheme, which is led by Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, the World Health Organization and the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, works to make sure vaccines are distributed fairly around the world. Ghana's vaccines are part of an initial batch of deliveries bound for several low- and middle-income countries. Ivory Coast received another batch on Friday.
I'd like to encourage the healthcare workers in Africa, some of whom are raising questions about safety. The vaccines have been thoroughly looked at. The data is sufficient in terms of safety. Please accept this vaccine. The governments have prioritized you for a good reason.
Hopes are high that the inoculations will allow the world to finally emerge from a pandemic that has killed more than 2.4 million people, infected 112 million, and hammered the global economy. But experts warn that unless the whole world has access to vaccines, the pandemic will not end. The COVAX scheme aims to deliver at least 2 billion doses globally by the end of this year. More than 217 million vaccine doses have been administered globally, though the vast majority have been given in high-income countries. Sticking with vaccinations now, Guinea started inoculation for the Ebola virus after declaring a fresh epidemic in what is the first outbreak in 4 years. The country detected new cases on February 13th in the southeastern Nzerekore region, which was the epicenter of the previous epidemic.
Here, we vaccinate contacts first. Since the virus was discovered in this hospital, we're now vaccinating contacts first. And in a second stage, we're going to extend the vaccination to all the hospital staff, since they are on the front line in the fight against this disease.
The re-emergence of the viral disease has evoked the spectres of the devastating Ebola epidemic between 2013 and 2016 in West Africa, which left 11,300 people dead in Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Ebola causes severe fever and, in worst cases, unstoppable bleeding. It's transmitted through close contact with bodily fluids. People who live with or care for patients are most at risk. Italy's ambassador to the Democratic Republic of Congo was among 3 people killed in an attack in the east of the country. Luca Attanasio was shot dead after unidentified assailants ambushed a 2-vehicle convoy from the UN's World Food Programme in which he was travelling. The group was en route to a school programme in the eastern province of North Kivu, near the Rwanda border. The diplomat's Italian bodyguard and a Congolese driver were also shot. 6 other people survived the attack. Authorities in DRC accused the Rwandan Hutu rebels of the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, but they've denied any involvement and instead blame members of the Rwandan and Congolese army. Niger's ruling party candidate Mohamed Bazoum won presidential runoff elections last Sunday. He's the crowned successor of outgoing President Mahamadou Issoufou, who is standing down after serving 2 terms. Bazoum picked up 55.75% of the vote in Sunday's runoff, and his opponent, former President Mahamadou Ousmane, won 44.25%.
It is with great emotion that I take in these results. It is also with great humility that I pay tribute to the people of Niger.
But Ousmane claimed that in fact he had won, as violent protests erupted the day the results were announced. 2 people have died and hundreds have been arrested. Once Bazoum takes over, it will be the first democratic transfer of power in the country since independence from France in 1960. And FIFA President Gianni Infantino launched a project to organise a school football championship in the Democratic Republic of Congo to be replicated at the African level. Infantino met the DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi in the capital Kinshasa as part of a tour around Africa.
On a lancé
Today we launched a project here of a competition, a school championship that we're going to replicate throughout Africa, because education, schools and football must work together.
L'éducation, les écoles et le football, ça doit être en symbiose.
Stephen Odhiambo is making his way to work, dodging Nairobi's nightmare early morning traffic. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit Kenya in March last year, the 30-year-old videographer has avoided public transport. He rather takes his chances with two wheels on the capital city's chaotic roads.
The fear was there about trying to maneuver these roads of ours where the matatus are usually, okay, the big percentage, the drivers are usually careless. They can push you off the road. They don't care about you. But I just look at the pros and cons. I'm much safer on a bicycle. I'm social distancing. I take less time.
20 years after last getting on a bike, Stephen decided to start cycling to work. Along 15 kilometers of roads without bike paths, where he navigates trucks, rushing buses and motorcycles. Despite some cases of road rage and 2 minor accidents, he is a staunch convert.
If I don't show you the benefit of why I'm cycling and why it's much safer and healthier for you, you won't see the benefit of it. Like for me personally, personal story, when I started in April until December last year, 2020, I had lost 20 kgs in that span. Just cycling, no gym, no running, no dieting.
Like Stephen, more Nairobi residents have taken up cycling since the pandemic started. Bike sellers report a booming business. Jimmy says his sales went up by 58% in 2020.
In 2020, the sales were high compared to 2019 in terms of sales, because you find that people wanted to cycle more just to keep fit, to commute from work from point A to point B. And mostly since cycling is a sport, they wanted to keep fit because people were on lockdown.
Many people view cycling as equitable and low-cost mobility, though it can be a dangerous.
Well, that was a report from the African continent. We'll take a very short breather here on Pan-African Morning. Do stay with us. On the other side of this half hour, we speak to Dr. SEBIYA from Intsiga Economic Movement. Quite a bit of information and a number of things that we want to touch on, especially following the budget speech of the Finance Minister a couple of weeks ago, and to try and understand some of the projects that they're undertaking as a movement. So you don't want to miss it if you're into small to medium enterprises, if you're looking for funding, and you know, all those areas will be covered in the next few minutes. So do stay with us. We'll be back.
Make massive moves.
Bible is human and divine.
It's important for us to remember.
And I'm part of God's story.
Yeah, mama, mama, hey.
God is healing you.
God says what he means, and he means what he says.
God is good.
I am very grateful to God. I am healed. Amen.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
This is just the beginning.
Make massive moves.
Get out! Get out of this place!
I love you. Do you love me?
Yes.
I like this.
Someone stole from me yesterday.
It was not my fault now.
Eh? Leave me or I blast your head. No, don't shoot, sir, please. Please don't kill us. I'll give you anything you want.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
Anger boils over in El Dorado Park.
Make massive moves.
Corruption allegations have hit too close to the office of the president.
America is crying out for leadership.
I'm the president and you're fake news.
Donald Trump has already started his attacks.
It is clear from the development of the disease.
It is still the biggest annual decline in 100 years.
Make massive moves with Starsat. Make massive moves.
Oh my God! Oh! Knocked out!
And WBC Continental America's champion.
That was delightful.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
Welcome back to Pan-African Morning. Very good morning to you. If you have just joined us, you're most welcome to the program. Your favorite breakfast show coming to you live from our Midrand studios here in Johannesburg. Do tell us where you're watching us from. We love to engage you. Our social media platforms are there for you to engage us. Our Twitter handle at GUN_TV_, our Facebook page as well is there for you, Galaxy Universal Network. If you're watching us on Starsat, we're also on channel 500. And if you're not aware of who I am, if you have just joined us once again, I'm AUDREY CHIMWANDA-THWALA. Joining us in studio now is Dr. SIHLE SEBIYA. We want to touch a bit on the budget speech, the State of the Nation address, and if those two, find each other in terms of what we heard from the Finance Minister and the President. I will also touch a bit on the state capture. I'm sure most of you have been following, just trying to make sense of it all. A very good morning to you, Dr. SEBIYA. Thank you for joining us on Pan-African Morning. It's been a minute. We had missed you. Welcome back to the program.
Greetings to you, Audrey, and greetings to the viewers at home.
Right. So let's start with the budget speech. Tito Mboweni trying to piece together, a very difficult budget, so to speak, given the circumstances that the country is going through. Of course, one can't help but also think of the State of the Nation address, what we heard from the President. From your analysis, would you think there was coherence between the two?
I think what came out from the Minister of Finance, at least what the citizens of this country must take out of it, is the fact that he did acknowledge the fact that the country is through difficult times financially, which is important given the fact that we cannot paint a very nice picture that everything is going to go smooth given the challenges that we are going through in terms of the pandemic. That is not really helping us to get more so that we can then be able to run the programs of the country and so forth. So it's true that SARS is going to collect less, and even last year it collected less because of this pandemic. But there are a number of things that probably the citizen were expecting to see if it's going to come, because you remember the president can say whatever that he wants to say. If it's not coming out from the budget speech, then obviously it's not going to be something that is going to happen. So we will know that the president is prioritizing infrastructure projects. And I think some of them did come out of the budget speech. You look at water infrastructure, you look at the road, which I think those did come out from the budget speech. But the question is, most for me, as I've said before, those projects, they are really not sustainable for our economy to really be able to strive and to grow as they're supposed to. Our program just to say what can we do now to mitigate the situation while we come up with a proper solution for our economy and all that. One of the other things is that we all know that government said for them going forward, they're going to prioritize getting skills within government so that they can then be able to run those big projects that government wants to fund. So we have not seen that. I think the first thing that government's supposed to do is then to source those skills and to ensure that they're able then to monitor and to run those projects so that we don't then find ourselves in a situation where We have got money that is invested into this project, but those projects, they don't finish on time, within budget also, given the fact that we don't have money. So that is one thing that they need to look into. But we know that some of the other projects that government is banking on are projects that are funded by private sector. For example, we have got the Water Kloof mega project that the government, I think, is more than 30 billion budget. So that is one of the projects that the government thinks that is going to be able to add something into this economy. But we know that there is also some investment that is coming in to some of the projects. The government did talk to the issue of student accommodation and all that, which I did not see it coming out from the budget speech to say we have put this amount that will focus on building that accommodation for those students.
Yeah, so there was quite a bit of outcry, particularly from higher education students. I think there was some kind of a defunding of NSFAS.
Yes.
And I mean, you know, coming from, was it 2014-15 of a fees must fall movement, and coming to a decision such as that really must have been a punch in the stomach for students.
It's bad, because if we were to look at the prioritization of this project, I think government is carried out of the infrastructure project that they need to roll out. But we also want to help our listeners so that they don't want to find themselves in a situation that we did find ourselves before, because I think I did mention to say, as GISA was one of the plans that we had before that was focusing on a huge infrastructure project and all that, but we did not get the value. Today, as we still speak, we still have unemployment that is high, we still have inequality that is high, we still have poverty levels that are high. So we have not managed to solve those critical critical challenges that we are having as a country. So if you look at government also pushing the issue of student accommodation, for me, given the times and the changes that are taking place given the fourth industrial revolution, but also given the fact that the pandemic is pushing us to work almost everywhere.
Yeah.
So then why would you then put a lot of budget into building student accommodation, which then is not aligned with the times? I believe that government was supposed to put more money into connectivity, which also did not come out from the Minister of Finance budget speech. The issue of SA Connect, we know that SA Connect was established long time ago. You remember there was a broadband policy that was developed when Minister CHIMWANDA was still a minister back then. And that policy was being adopted, and there was budget, and in fact around 20, I think is last year, 2020, government was supposed to have almost all the government facilities connected, but at a lower bandwidth level, so that in 2030, then all of them, they will have almost 100 megabytes connectivity
which
around those.
Which have been so helpful, particularly during this period of COVID-19, when people are working from home and having to use, so much bandwidth.
So you can see that government is not consistent with their programs.
Implementation.
And also implementation, but also the monitoring, because there was money that was invested there. So we want to know what happened to that money. And if you look at it for education, I think there is a lot that still needs to be done, but I don't think the issue of accommodation takes high priority. There are other things that are taking higher priority. One of them, I think, is the issue of the data for students. The other one is the issue of NSFAS for students, that they need to have a proper funding to ensure that we're able then to drive. But also, what has been interesting for me is that we have seen the list of the critical skills that government wants to source outside through the Department of Home Affairs, where they've published a list, which is really contradicting with the fact that NSFAS has said they are not going to fund some of the BTech degrees, which then comes out from that list as the skills that government is aiming to get from outside. So I think our government really they are working in silos to a certain degree. So there is still a lot that still need to be done in that space to ensure that really we are able to respond to the critical skills that this country requires to drive that. But also is then to say, how are we making sure that we transform the IT industry, given the fact that now we are prioritizing the IT skills that we are saying want to get outside? We cannot continue like that if we are serious about the program for localization of product and services. So if that is a priority of government, I expected government not to even publish even one list or one skill to get to source from outside. They were supposed then to use.
I remember looking at that list of critical skills. I was quite baffled with some of the skills that were listed there that you would think would be readily available in South Africa. Of course, some of them not so much. Again, looking outside of the country to look for people that are that have those kind of skill set, looking at the unemployment rate in the country, it really doesn't make sense and doesn't fill in that void. I want to talk about the Finance Minister Tito Mboweni also saying that Treasury will bankroll South Africa's COVID-19 vaccine program without relying on any tax increases. But we do understand that Treasury SARS is not really getting quite a lot of tax. So how do you make sense of that?
I think we have got a lot of challenges around that. I think even this morning there was an outcry that this vaccination program seemed not to be going as it's supposed to. But I think there's a lot that questions that the citizens are asking in terms of the vaccine itself, to say the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, was it ready, or they're still running a trial? So the question is, if they're running a trial, are we paying for the trial as a country or not?
That is so true.
I know that there was a budget that was put about, I think it's 10 billion that government wants to put behind the vaccination of the people and so forth. I think also on that one, we're waiting to see. I think given the pandemic and everything, the outcry, and the fact that there is the third wave that that has been forecast. So is the matter of them now saying how is that third wave going to be different from the current wave, which is the second wave? Because if then we continue with the procurement of whatever that we are procuring, and then all of a sudden then there's a third wave and it has got a different stain, so then it's not going to save not going to save the purpose.
And on that note, I want to read out to you and to our viewers as well a statement that actually came from the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, SAPRA board members, saying that they're outraged by the government announcing that a rollout of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine had started, when in fact it is just another clinical trial by the American pharmaceutical company. So I don't think citizens are quite aware of the difference between the two, and I don't think the messaging has been very clear in that regard.
No, definitely, I think that's true, and you'll know that I've heard that in KZN, seems as if the vaccination program is not running as it's supposed to, and with the healthcare workers. So we have got serious challenges when it comes to this, because now the question is then will be, is our government, or is the government for private sector? Because if it's our government, then it needs to serve our interests, which simply means that we're supposed to be told the truth. We understand that as we speak today, the COVID stats and everything else has went down, but it's not because of the vaccination program. We know that the vaccination program has just targeted only the medical experts or practitioners. So which simply means that the majority of those that were getting COVID-19 really are not the doctors, so which means are ordinary people. But given where we are today, we are able to go to the level 1, which simply means that there are some of the things that are working. But also the question is, what is the scientific understanding behind the way in which this patterns and how the spread is
quite peculiar,
because it's difficult to look at it and extract some scientific understanding of how things are happening. So I think there is still a lot of things that probably our government will need to do to ensure that really we are able to buy into the program of vaccination, but also we are not all getting to a point where we buy these things, but at the end of the day we not use it. Because if we find ourselves in that situation, given the fact that we don't have money, and we find ourselves in a situation where then we have procured these things, these vaccinations, but then we don't use it at the end of the day, then the question will be then, why do we have to go through this process at all, you know? Yeah. So there's a lot that government still need to do. We know that the terrain in which we are in is a terrain that we have never been in before, and probably no one has been through this kind of situation. But we expect our healthcare workers and experts and scientists, especially the team behind the advisory committee around this COVID-19, to really come close to the reality of things and help us to really understand the direction that they are taking, but also the challenges that they are facing, because we know that there are challenges. So why are we not told about the challenges? And they are always coming up with decisions that sometimes we are not aware as to how they come about and all that. So that kind of confusion I don't think is expected from our leaders. We are human beings that I think we have got certain level of capability to really help even government to implement this kind of program. So if we don't buy in this, the question also is that why is it not that we have the community organization being part of this program, including churches, for that matter, so that at the end of the day, then we are able then to get probably an extended reach, so that if we have to embark on the vaccination, then the program can really run as quick as possible and so forth. So I think those are the questions that our government will need to answer around that.
Yes. And very quickly, Dr. SEBIYA, I want us to speak about the issue of the state capture inquiry. As we try to round up our conversation, we heard ex-ESCOM executive Machela Koko yesterday giving his testimony, once again denying knowingly sharing information with an associate of the Gupta family, I think Salim Issa, who are of course at the center of trying to capture state-owned enterprise, which is ESCOM. Quite some damning information came from that testimony yesterday, and some discoveries, as we heard from the evidence leader. What do you make of how far we've come with the state capture inquiry?
I think what I like about the finance minister is the fact that I think compared to the president, which did not really emphasize the fact that the state capture needs to conclude its work. I think it has been doing this thing for some time now, and we all know that the integrity of the committee has been tainted. It's difficult now for people to really believe in what is going to come out of that commission. I think the Deputy Chief Justice really did not do justice to that committee or that commission, because as we all know today is that it is now clouded with a lot of things that are happening in there. We have got now even the Constitutional Court being hung up in some of the things that are happening around that obviously I believe that given somebody of his caliber, he was supposed to know better to even manage perceptions, because it's not really about just doing your work. Doing your work, yes, is well and good, but you need also to be in a point where you also manage perceptions so that they don't cloud what is the commission is all about. I think the commission is now clouded with a lot of things that is not supposed to. The people that they believe that the commission is targeting individuals, is not following evidence. So they are stating their story, and people, they're able then to listen to them. But I think the Deputy Chief Justice was supposed to even know that most of what is happening around that commission really is driven by politics. And we know that politics is dominated by people's persons. And if that is the case, then you need to manage the way in which you deal with your evidence, because you don't want to be in a position where there are individuals that are coming into the commission, they are making allegations without providing any evidence into those allegations, because really those people, I believe, those are the individuals that almost everyone that came into that commission and lied and wasted our time needs to really pay back the money that we did put behind this, because this is not for free. Yes, there's been quite a lot of money, but of late we have seen almost everyone is booking a seat at Nkandla. So it simply means that there is something that is happening there, and it will be nice to get to understand what is really happening there. But
I mean, the sudden interest in having, you know, all these government officials, ANC senior officials, you know, heading to Nkandla is really something that is peculiar, and one wonders what is cooking and what is happening there. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. The challenge that I'm having with the whatever that is built now around the former president, which is Obaba Jacob Zuma, is the fact that, for me, I think he did show the people of this country, including the commission and also the High Court, that I understand that I need to comply with the order of the court.
Right.
And two is that I also understand that if I don't comply, then I will go to jail, or I have to go through a particular process that will then find me guilty and sentence me, whatever the case may be. So, and he has chosen one of those. So he said, I'm not going to go to the commission because, one, I have got a matter that is in court, that is pending, that needs to be addressed. In fact, I did not say I don't want to go to the commission, but I said I will not appear in front of the Deputy Chief Justice. So you can put any other person, I will still go to the commission. So the commission has been tied to be an individual, which is the Deputy Chief Justice, in the act that it has decided to take, to say, if there is no Deputy Chief Justice, then the president will not go there. So I think then we then needed to really look into all of the sudden that now everything is pushed to be around the former president, because for me, I don't think it was really supposed to be that issue, because the former president did say that I'm willing to go to jail if that is what is supposed to be.
Which is another issue, because the punitive measures that has been suggested by the Zondo Commission to the Constitutional Court is one that seems to be beyond what the Commission Act requires, which is 6 months. I mean, we've heard of 2 years and whatnot, which has really raised eyebrows.
Yeah, it raised eyebrows, because if you were to look at the legal minds are saying, as we are rightfully saying, they are saying is 6 months, or I think is 1,000 rand fine that the president will take. But the commission is saying they are requesting for 2 years, which is overreaching. So they are trying their luck there. So we'll see if our judiciary is also not captured, because we still need to it has to prove itself, given the fact that there are allegations out there that there are a number of judges that have been paid. I think even in the commission itself, it did come out that there were judges that were being managed through the State Security Agency. So I think there is also a lot that still need to even happen in that space.
But trying to have the Deputy Chief Justice excused after having listened to testimonies for the past 2 years surely will jeopardize the whole inquiry. That's certainly something that perhaps the former president should have looked at, to say, is this really what they want to do? to kind of keep the integrity of the inquiry intact?
Someone will then ask the question to say, the president has been there twice. So what was the problem with the commission to get most of the information that then now, all of a sudden, the president needs to go there for almost a week? Do they know what they're doing, or they are just doing as they wish? Because you remember we invested money there. That's why I was asking myself, really, if the Chief Justice can then be able to contest for the position of looking after that institution, is he going to really be able to manage it properly, the projects that needs to go in there? Because on this one, I believe that he has failed to manage it properly, from the fact that there is even interference, political interference and other things that they alleged are happening around the commission itself, but also budget-wise. And you recall that even initially the same commission was moved from where it was doing its job before and also the question is then, what informed that move to the new building, and what was the problem with that one? So there is a lot that is happening around that commission, because I don't think there was proper integrity that when a process that all of the people that are taking part in there, in terms of the people that are helping the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, to really get all these things to be in order. Because I think all of those, they were supposed to be vetted, so that we know their interest and their relationship with some of the people that have been coming through this in those commissions.
We'll have to leave it there. Very important salient points you've raised, Dr. SIHLE SEBIYA, on Pan-African Morning today. It's been an amazing half an hour. Funny how time flies when one is having a good time. Thank you so much for your insights and your input. We certainly appreciate it. That has been Dr. SIHLE SEBIYA from SEBIYA Economic Movement. We'll have to leave it there for now. This has been Pan-African Morning. Thank you for watching the program. We'll take a short breather. Quite a bit of more news and updates lined up for you on Galaxy Universal Network. You want to stay tuned to Channel 500. Good morning.
Make massive moves.
Bible is human and divine.
It's important for us to remember.
And I'm part of God's story.
Yeah, mama, mama, hey.
God is healing you.
God says what he means, and he means what he says.
God is good.
I am very grateful to God. I am healed.